everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are from. Welcome to this day of security, cybersecurity conference for women by women. Uh, my name is Stuti Kanodia. I work as a software security engineer at Microsoft. Today's topic that we are going to cover for next 30 minutes is zero trust in application security. And this session will be a mix of theoretical as well as some of the case studies that will be engaging. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat and we'll take it at the end of the sessions. So yeah, what we'll be covering in next 30 minutes are these topics, like a little bit setting of the stage, like what is application security, what is zero trust, and then we'll see what are the key principles involved in setting up the zero trust, and then how we can apply zero trust security in application security. So these, please bear with me, these are some theoretical concepts that we will be going through, and then we'll come up with some case studies that will be engaging, interactive, and that will help us to build a good understanding around the zero trust in application security. And then at the end, we'll move to Q&A sessions. So yeah, let's proceed. So yeah, what is application security? I'm sure like many of us already aware, many of us will be working in application security domain. So just to set the stage, let's start with the basic, like what is application security? So basically application security is a practice that basically safeguards your applications, your softwares from various cyber threats and vulnerabilities. It involves implementing various type of measures. It will implement measures to prevent, detect, and respond to security risks. So just to take a simple example, like we mostly have dealt with like we in day-to-day activity, we go to we don't generally go like physically to bank, we use net banking application. So with the help of application security, we can secure our banking application. That is very crucial application that includes our financial data, records, our PII information, such. So with the help of application security practice, we prevent hackers from stealing sensitive information from our banking app. It was just one example. Similar to that, many of the things we can do with application security. Basically, it's a practice that helps us to safeguard our very crucial applications. Now coming to what is zero trust. So zero trust model, as the name suggests, zero trust. So zero trust is a security, is a approach that basically assumes like there is nobody, no one should be trusted in within the boundary, outside of the boundary. So basically, it basically works on zero trust policy, as the name also says the same thing, like zero trust. Nobody should be trusted until proven otherwise. So there could be users, devices, applications that could be treated as a potential threat. If the earlier approach was to traditionally was like to whatever the secure parameter we create within our network parameter, that within that boundary, whatever is there, be it a user, device, or applications, that we trust. But now there is something called insider threat also exists. So zero trust makes sure, like whether it is a trusted boundary or whether it is an untrusted boundary, all are treated as the same, and all should have the continuous verification and authentication process maintained to before accessing any resources. So the zero trust security challenges our traditional approach of trusting entities within the network perimeter. So that is like what zero trust security is. I hope I am able to make understand like what application security and zero trust security is. Let's proceed with key principles involved in zero trust security. Now, there are many principles that creates zero trust security, but these are the few that I'm presenting here that that plays a very keen, important role in implementing zero trust security. So the number one is assume breach scenario. So in zero trust, we always assume a breach could happen within or outside of the trusted boundary. There is no one is trusted within zero trust, as mentioned earlier as well. So we always presume like breach can happen anywhere, at any place, at any time. So we are always prepared. We are always not trusting anyone within the boundary or outside of the boundary. So we always assume breach. That's the mindset that we have to cater while implementing zero trust security. Like it's always assume breach. The second is verify identity. So verify identity is basically we have to continuously verify the identity of a user, device, or any such thing that is present within a boundary or outside of the boundary. So that it's basically a continuous authentication process that goes continue within the zero trust security. Now coming to least privilege access. Least privilege access is basically giving access to a certain user or a device or a software at a very least level. Like you should have only access XYZ thing if you're allowed to do that. You shouldn't have access ABC as well if you're not allowed to do that. So we always follow a least privilege access principle while implementing a zero trust security model. It should always be like you should not give a whole privileged access to everyone. For example, if I take an example of a hospital, we have an application that manages different departments in the hospital. Like there are different users. You can assume a doctor, a nurse, administrator. So these are different users. They might have different level of. They might need different level of access within the application. So least privilege access makes sure like a doctor shouldn't be able to access the data of administrator or a vice versa. So basically this is a least privilege access that we follow in while implementing zero trust security. Moving forward, micro segmentation. Micro segmentation is a part like where we try to divide our network into small chunks like segments so that we can secure our our application, our network area, and reduce the attack vector from the lateral movement. Because earlier what used to have is we have not segmented, like not divided the network into small segments, and then it is basically creating a one set of networking. Within that all your devices or your applications are present. But now we try to divide the networks based on the access levels. Like there are multiple applications can be part of one network, but we try to create a separate segmentation between two or three applications so that no one can reach each other, because there could be a possibility within the trusted boundary as mentioned, like one app could impact another impact. So to reduce the impact, we try to segment our network. Now coming to encryption and data protection. So as we know there are multiple ways. So there are like when you try to communicate something to other person, it should be like the data flows, how the data flows from one person to another person. So it should be very confidential. It shouldn't be uh, disclosed to a third party. So that is called encryption in transit. So basically during the flow we should always encrypt the data. So that is also very important. And in that case, like we all have heard like TLS encryption works. Like we should have HTTPS communication maintained so that nobody can attack in the man in middle and get your data. Now similar to that, there is also exists encryption at rest. What happens is when you try to have your data stored at somewhere, maybe a secure database or maybe a key vault, some storage account, XYZ places, even an attacker is get to your location, they shouldn't have the data in a plain text or in a very raw format that they can directly consume that. We should always encrypt the data at rest as well. Like even the person has able to reach and get to your location, they won't be able to get or decrypt the data, like use your data. So that is encryption at rest. So basically zero trust also very much uh, uh, say like yeah, you should always encrypt the data at rest as well as at transit. Now coming to continuous monitoring and analysis. It's not the last but very important point in zero trust security, because this is the first step to know if something is happened or not, basically. For example, if you have built an application, but there is no way to check who is accessing your application, how, from where the application is accessed, how many hit has been done, it will be maybe late to discover like what type of attack has happened. So continuous monitoring and analysis makes sure in zero trust, like whatever the access or the malicious activity is happening, it can be tracked, and it can be tracked and performed analysis and remediated at a very initial stage. Because as soon as we get to know like what is the issue that we are facing, until or unless we know like what is the issue, we won't be able to resolve it. So we should always monitor our actions. Like continuous monitoring is very important in zero trust security. So these are the key principles, I believe we should follow while implementing zero trust security. Yeah, but yeah, there are many principles that we can add here while implementing zero trust security. Now, let's move forward. So yeah, the next topic is applying zero trust in application security. So as of now, we have seen like what are the major principles that create zero trust security. Now there are different you can say practices where we implement zero trust security. One of them is application security. How do we implement zero trust security in application security? So there are like identity centric security. So identity centric security is contains a lot of practices, lot of techniques. With that, we can implement zero trust within application security. Couple of them are listed as MFA, that is a multi-factor authentication. So, for example, when you access any application, a web application, you try to provide your username and password to that particular application, and you are able to log into your application. You are able to perform whatever operations you want to perform. Now, multi-factor authentication is an additional layer on top of your normal authentication process that provides an additional security layer. Now, it comprises of more than two factors, maybe more than one factors, maybe two or three factors. So for example, if I talk about username and password, so that is a user knows something, like user know like it's his username and password. Now multi-factor authentication can add an additional layer, that is a user has something, or maybe user is something. So user has something as in like you will have your smartphone with you where you will get your one-time password. So that is like an additional layer on top of your normal username password. So with that, what how it helps in, like you are just not only trusting a user to provide username password. For example, if someone is able to breach that and get to your username password, they cannot log in. Why? Because you need to provide a one-time password, also one-time OTP as well, to access the application as an additional layer. So that is how there is a way to implement identity centric security using MFA in AppSec. Now, SSO is single sign-on. So basically, it is a way to access multiple applications within the organization by providing a single password. You don't need to remember. Like it's very user friendly, and it's provide very productive approach to access multiple applications while logging once only with one password. Now you don't need to remember many passwords and everything, and also you it also protects people to use the same password at various locations. So you just need to log in once and you can access all the applications within the org using that SSO. Many of organizations are using SSO behind the scene to access multiple their organization applications. So that is how we implement identity-centric security. Other approach is continuous authentication. The continuous authentication uh, it's a different approach apart from these two, because basically it continually authenticate to the user. It basically checks, there are some checks present within this particular approach where it checks basically from where the user is logging in. If the location is different from normal location, then it will verify like if someone is who someone says it is. If not, they will provide some special activity to perform, like some capture or something to confirm your identity, like yeah, you are the person which you say you are. Because many of times we have seen like people will try to hit the application from different places like cyber cafes or some different place. So with the help of continuous authentication, we try to save our application from unauthorized access. So that is like identity centric approach. That is the one way we can apply zero trust in application security. Now coming to the next one, that is least privileged access. That is like it's like, as we mentioned, like it should be only attributed to a specific role or attribute. So basically there are multiple ways we can implement least privilege access. Like one is RBAC, that is role based access control. So based on the roles, we can decide which user needs which level of access. Because let's take an example, like within the organization we have different departments, like financial department, HR department, and service teams are there, like development fields are teams are there. So HR team shouldn't be able to access the data of financial team, and vice versa as well. So role-based access control makes sure based on the role a person should be given access. So that's how we implement least privilege access in application security, by implementing the role-based access control. Like based on your role, it will identify like what level of access is required, and it will give you the access in your application. Now coming to ABAC, that is attribute based access control. Now, attribute based access control is more granular level. Basically, it tries to see like from which department you are to access a file. It's not always like your what is the role of you. Like for example, you are a administrator in a financial department or maybe HR department, then you should have access at admin level. That is like RBAC. Now coming to role, coming to attribute, maybe your admin has a role, an attribute to have to access a file, but only certain files, right? Because administrator can access most of the files, but sometimes there are multiple levels of administrators maintained within the organization as well. Admin 1, admin 2, admin 3, or maybe super admin, and normal admin user as well. So in that case, how we granularize the access is using attribute. We have to attach an attribute to a specific user to make sure like they can only access a specific set of files only. So attribute based access control is more granular rather than role based access control. Now coming to the third point, that is JIT access. So JIT access is just in time access. So nowadays, many of the organizations relies on just in time access. So a lot of production sites that a user wants to access within their organization or such, what happens is it's a temporary access that has given to a user for a certain amount of time, and that goes to a proper procedure. Like once you have to request an access for a certain application you want to access, and then a specific person or authorized person will approve your access, that you want to access that application. And once you got the approval, you will grant it or permit it for a specific access for a certain amount of time, for example 8 hours or 5 hours. So say you want to access a very privileged application within your organization, but for that you have to request via JIT, like just in time access. There will be a portal where you go, you will raise a request that I want to access this application for this reason, and then authorized person will review your request, will try to will approve your request. Once it is approved, they will see, once it is approved, you will be permitted to access that application for a certain amount of time. That could be the 8 hour or 7 hours or 24 hours. Once it is completed, the time is over, the access will be revoked. So that makes sure like it basically creates a window for an attacker, like it reduces the window of an attack based on giving the temporary access to a user. So these are a couple of ways we can implement least privilege access in application security. Now coming to a couple of more topics within that application security, like microsegmentation. So microsegmentation is part of it's a topic you can say within the network segmentation. So basically, as in a very brief we discussed, like earlier we used to have a whole network segment, one segment, into that all the applications devices are present and they can communicate with each other. Now with the help of microsegmentation within network, you can divide your network into small segments, and then you can restrict like which applications should be able to access other application. So that also implements like zero trust network access. So with the help of these type of solutions, you can implement the micro segmentation within your network. Generally, if I give you an example, you can have your virtual network created within your boundary, and then that virtual network can have multiple subnets present, and each subnet will be have specific rules present. With that, you can decide which application will be able to access other application within the network. So that is very important, as it reduces the attack area, as well as it basically gives the opportunity to make the impact less. Like if attack happens, it can only impact a certain area, not the whole area, because we have divided our network and made the network access within that particular segmentation. So micro segmentation is very important while implementing an application or any such thing. Now, the last point is secure communication. The secure communication, as we discussed in a succinct, like encryption in transit, encryption at rest, is very important. Similar to that, we can also, there is another very good, you can say, technique that we can use, like mutual authentication, that is MTLS. MTLS is very important for API security. For example, if two different APIs want to communicate with each other or from two different applications, then in that case, not only server will provide its certificate to prove the digital certificate to prove what it is, client will also provide its certificate to prove like what it is. So it's like a mutual TLS authentication happens, and it's an extended technique to prove like, yeah, I am what I'm saying as a client as well. So it is very important to implement during the API security. So yeah, this was all about the theory that I wanted to explain, like what is zero trust security, what are the key principles involved in zero trust security, and how we can incorporate zero trust security within application security. Now let's see a couple of use cases or maybe case study. So I have taken a two small case study for our session. One is we will do a small threat model, and we will see what attacks we can discover here and how we can remediate those attacks or those threats with the help of zero trust security. So the first is let's assume this is an e-commerce web application. Many of us has been using like I don't want to put a name, but yeah, many of the web applications are there to act to buy online things. So it's just let's assume that it's an e-commerce application. We have an external user that access that our e-commerce application, made purchases, have their order history maintained, everything. Now, web application server is the main, we can say, front facing thing. Not exactly front facing thing, because it basically hosts your application, and it will process your request, it will take your request, it will provide you the response. For example, you access this e-commerce application, so web application server will basically process your request. With the help of web application server, you will be able to get the response. Now, database server is where your sensitive data is informed, your order ID, your order information, your PII information. All the sensitive information will be stored in your database. Now, internal user will be the users that will within the secure parameter, we can say, will be there, or not exactly secure parameter, but the people who will be like administrator, or the developers who maintain this application, or the customer service representative. So these will be the internal users who will try to see like how much request is coming to your application, what needs to be done, etc., etc. So it's a simple application. We have four component: external user, web application server, database server, internal user. Now think as a threat model, what attack could happen on this application? Like what are the major attack surface area we could think of as a broader? There could be many, and there could be also many components involved in while building an e-commerce site. But I have just taken a four major components, and let's brainstorm like what type of attacks could happen and how we can remediate that. So if anyone is interested, they can paste that in the chat box, and we can see like what type of attack you can come up with. Like how if just to give an example, if an external user accesses our application, what can be done? how web application server, database server could be compromised. What type of attack you can see with the help of this diagram. So if anyone, please drop a note in the chat. We can see like what do you think? What is your thought? Like what attack would happen? It's a very simple threat diagram. So yeah, I mean, uh, mostly what attack I can see from my side, I can explain. Like there could be a possibility like unauthorized access to the database could be given by yeah. I think two people has requested to speak. Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, you can. I think request via ask to speakers option, and we can uh, discuss maybe. I think um, let me just unmute yours. Just allow me a minute. I'll unmute and yeah, we can discuss maybe. Oh, Vani has mentioned SQL injection. Bang on, definitely. That is definitely one is the very most and very crucial attack that could happen while with this particular threat model. Uh, what else we have? So yeah, I think without further uh, wait, let's learn like what could happen. Yeah, so one, you're perfectly right. Like yeah, SQL injection is very crucial, and if an external user finds a way to inject a malicious SQL payload and get to the database, then they can get a lot of sensitive information. They can maybe get your other username password. If it is not encrypted, they can directly use that username password to access the application from behalf of another user and create an havoc on the whole e-commerce site. So that is one type of attack that could happen. Now there are many attacks could happen, like maybe cross-site scripting. Let's take example. So if there are no proper validations present on the platform, people can inject malicious payload, and then they can steal users' cookie, and then they can access the application. There could be elevation of privilege also could be present, like maybe a user can access a application with a high privileged user. There is no proper least privilege access maintained. By changing some of the parameters in the request, you can try to access the application as a high privileged user. So there is no definite number of attack surfaces present. Like there could be n number of attacks that could happen with this application. So that yeah, this is how we see like attack how it happens. So like for example, web application server, database server, how they are isolated means are they are in different network segmentation, or they are present in the same perimeter. So in case if they are present in the same perimeter, it is possible like one is compromised, another could be easily compromised. So many things can happen within this e-commerce platform. Now let's see how we can remediate those attacks using zero trust security. Now, this is like some of the mitigation strategies that I have enlisted here with the help and see like what can be done. So one is micro segmentation. So basically, as just mentioned earlier, like we have web server and database server present. So with the help of micro segmentation, we can isolate and restrict the access between different components of the e-commerce applications. So for example, web server or database server. So if we have a different network segmentation present for these two servers, then even one is compromised or something happened, we can limit the attack area. We can limit the impact. So it is very important to segment the different components of your application. Again, zero trust authentication comes into the picture here. Like normally, if you see many sites only ask you to provide username and password. So even if someone is able to get to your username password, we can enforce the multi-factor authentication, and that could help. That could create an additional security layer, and then that could help us to secure the application. Encryption everywhere. So definitely we should always utilize the encryption protocols like HTTPS is normally everybody knows, like, yeah, during the transition of the data we should always encrypt our data. So the whatever the data is transmitted from the client to server, it's always encrypted, and no one can go into the man in the middle and perform any actions. Similar to that, uh, also, like, between the database, like, we always see, like, when we try to access our application as an external user, the data should be encrypted, but within the boundary itself we have different components maintained. So if web server wants to talk to the database server, they also need to have a data encrypted, because there is a possibility that if an attacker is able to get to your application, they can literally pivot and access the database also, or web server also. So that is what we can do. And quickly moving forward, continuous monitoring, like, we should always implement continuous monitoring and detection mechanism to always detect and respond to the suspicious activities, such as, like, if anything unusual happening, any unusual login attempts are happening, anyone hitting the database continuously by poking that application. So we should always continuously monitor the activities. Least privilege access, yeah, we should always focus on applying the principle of least privileges by granting user only the permission that is necessary for the particular user. Yeah, that is, I think, this is the one case study that we have gone through. Um, and now I think we just have one more case study to present, and I think we are running out of time as well. So yeah, that would be more interesting. The second case study is secure code review. So we will see, like, there are two examples I have presented here. Both has some sort of a vulnerability, and I can give you the hint. Like, the first one is someone has already guessed it in the first case study. This is very easy to guess, and second is also very easy. So both examples have some vulnerability. So if anyone wants to guess what exactly the vulnerability in the code is, uh, we can definitely take, I think, 30 seconds if anyone wants to guess in the chat. Otherwise I can explain, and then we can see how we can mitigate those vulnerabilities with the help of zero trust security. Yeah, so just 30 seconds if anyone wants to like, put it in the chat, like, what do you see, what do you feel, like, what's the vulnerability in the code is. Both example one, example two. If you see, the first example simply says, like, it is there is a login function. In that, they are just taking the username, password, and then it's a, like a login success, like login function that helps you to log into the application. And the second is, basically, it's a search text box in which you will put your query and click on the search button. It will search whatever the text you will enter that. So very small two examples. Anyone wants to guess? Okay, so let me explain. So yeah, first is simply SQL injection vulnerability. Basically, we are concatenating username password directly into the SQL query, which is an issue because there is no validation present. So it could lead to SQL injection. The second is cross-site scripting, very known vulnerability that will basically, whenever whatever you will enter in the search query, that will search. So you can also try to enter cross-site scripting payload like JavaScript payload and try to see if it is popping up something or not. And wherever this functionality is embedded in whatever application, you can try to steal some information, try to impact someone. So basically, the first one has SQL injection, the second one has cross-site scripting, to be simply put. Now let's see, like, how we can remedy those vulnerability with the help of zero trust security. So the first and foremost is SQL injection. Like, we know, like, we should never incorporate our data directly into the SQL query. We should always have a parameterized query or prepared statements maintained. And also the sanitization of user input is very important to prevent SQL injection attack. So that is a generic recommendation that has that basically the first line of defense we see to not to remediate the SQL injection. Now, what else we can do that can create a less havoc with the help, if in case SQL injection is present also. So here comes the picture of zero trust security. So as we know, like we talked about in the previous slide also, like we should enforce the least privilege access. So in this case also, even if someone is able to uh, perform an SQL injection attack and able to get to the database, we should enforce a least privilege access by ensuring that even if user has some permissions to access the database, or that permissions should be very limited set of tasks. Like if you are able to inject the SQL injection payload, you should only able to perform a very basic task, not access everything. So there should be a least privilege access maintained. Now the third thing is continuous monitoring and analyzing the database queries. So yeah, that is very very important. Again and again saying, like if you see any lot of things happening, like if an attacker is trying to send an SQL payload, try to inject some malicious payloads uh, in the application, it should be detected during the monitoring, and then it should be remedied with the help of monitoring also. So the below 2 points basically comes with the zero trust security, how you should implement it. Now coming quickly to the second example, where what happens is, like we know, like how to remediate the access attack. We can implement the input validation, ensure that proper sanitization is there, and output encoding is there to, and we can have multiple output encoding techniques like HTML entity encoding. We can use CSV headers to and sanitize the user data to implement like input validations. Now apart from all these, we can also incorporate the firewalls. So firewalls are very important, that basically detect and blocks the suspicious HTTP request that contains the XSS payload. Basically it enhances your overall security posture of the application. So that is how we can implement zero trust and remediate those vulnerabilities in a better way and create a less havoc, well, if it is still exploited. So yeah, these were the two case studies I wanted to explain with the help of zero trust security. So yeah, zero trust security is very important while implementing, creating or developing any application, or try to remediate any vulnerability, uh, and all these things. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's all about my session. This was all about zero trust security. So if anyone has any questions, yeah, we can quickly answer any questions if you have. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, that's all. Yeah, I think that's all about my session. Thank you for joining and helping us, listening my session topic. And I think we have some polls also created for the session, so I would request everyone to please help us with the poll. Please share your feedback and whatever improvement points you see, so that yeah, we can prepare better from the next time, we can improve. So please let us know via your feedback, via the polls, like what is you think it can be improved in the session, what can be the better from the next time. So that would be really helpful for us as well. Yeah, I believe poll is on live. So yeah, please, I request everyone to please provide the ratings. Yeah, I think. And last but not the least, I would thank you. I would thank Day of Security team to organizing this and providing me this privilege to present this session here. It is very a good opportunity for me to present here and share my insights with everyone. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. That's really been an honor.